It's time to get sexy, so watch Secular Sexuality Live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTSS and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callsex.
Hello, fellow doubters and disbelievers, and welcome back to another episode of The Nonprofits, the show where we discuss news and topics of the day from a skeptical humanist perspective. This show is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the separation of religion and government and promoting positive atheism. My name is Cynthia McDonald, and joining me are my fellow heretics. First, let me start with my far left. I think this is my far left. Let's just go with that. Arden, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be back. Love it here on the nonprofits. Can't wait to dive in.
Yes, Arden, I was just remarking that last time that we were on together, the Dark Overlord took you away from us.
Yes, it's true. It was really scary and sad, but I'm back and we're here. Hopefully it won't happen again.
If it happens, I've been praying to the Dark Overlord, and you're here, so that is empirical evidence that prayer works. Take that.
Wow, we showed them. Checkmate, atheists.
I know, right? And to my immediate left, Richard Gilliver. Hello, how are you?
Look, I'm the luckiest person in non-profits history. Look, I'm sandwiched between you two. That nobody else can. This is amazing. Oh, I'm just looking forward to this so much. We've had so much fun backstage, and let's carry it on and have a brilliant show moving forward. Let's go.
Indeed. Indeed. Yes, I'm excited today too. And I just love how you said that you were sandwiched between Arden and myself because it is Thursday where you are.
It is indeed
It
Thursday.
totally is Thursday where you are. So let the sandwich continue. And I don't even really eat bread like that. Well, everybody, today we're going to be talking about some things. In our first segment, we're going to talk about how the anti-vax ball bounces with Aaron Rodgers thought that he could get away with a homeopathic vaccine substitute versus Kyrie Irving, NBA anti-vaxxers at odds with the NBA. In our next segment, we're going to talk about another apologist that bites the dust. Christian radio host Doc Gallagher gets 3 life prison terms for bilking listeners out of millions of dollars. In our third segment, the religious right is crowing. They won the Virginia governor's race by sowing fear of trans people because, yeah, they're really fearful. Gosh. And then we're going to wrap up this whole dog and pony show with exactly how silly our politics have gotten. And we still can't define critical race theory. And as with all of our shows, links to today's topics and the news we discuss are available in the description below. So feel free to pause this video and read the material for yourself. Don't just take our word for it, but make sure you come back to hear our discussion. All right? All right. All right. So let's go ahead and get into this. So we're going to go with our first segment about how Aaron Rodgers thought that he can get away with this homeopathic vaccine versus Kyrie Irving of the New Jersey Nets. And this particular article comes from our friend of the show, Hemet Meta, Friendly Atheist. And basically, in this one, the article talks about how in August of this year, Aaron Rodgers, who is the quarterback of Green Bay, has it been over 2 minutes, guys? Can you tell me if it's been over 2 minutes? I think it's been over 2 minutes, right? Yeah, we're in just over 2 minutes. Cool. You're supposed to say yes. It's been over 2 minutes. Just say yes. Got just say yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So Aaron Rodgers, quarterback from the Green Bay Packers, and I have to say this because it's in my Chicago contract. Fuck Green Bay. Was asked if he was vaccinated for COVID-19, and he said that he was immunized, and it turns out that his version of immunized was undergoing an alternative treatment for COVID-19 immunization. Even though I still, in all of my combing of the interwebs, I did not find out what this said alternative treatment was. But let's keep going. So it turns out that it did not work, and Aaron ended up with COVID, and he cannot return to play for the Green Bay Packers again. Fuck Green Bay, until the test comes negative in November 13th. And this issue with this whole thing is that he wasn't truthful when he was asked about being vaccinated, and he did put his teammates at risk. I want to give this particular quote from the article, which says that the quarterback has followed masking and other protocols while the Packers facilities, according to for ESPN. I heard they talk about sports and whatnot, but he has not worn a mask in the team media's auditorium nor on the sidelines during games. And other unvaccinated Packers players have done interviews and press conferences via Zoom. But he didn't particularly follow that protocol. So I'm going to go ahead and just put a pin in all of that. And I'm going to let you guys jump in and hear your thoughts when you heard said news.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not a sports ball watcher, so mind my ignorance a little bit, but like I understand that I can, if I'm being super charitable, I can imagine a situation where this guy is put on the spot and he, maybe has mixed feelings or something and doesn't give a straight answer and then gets wrapped up in this whole thing. But I think what really makes this a problem is the fact that he wasn't following these other protocol, that he went on to get some other kind of treatment, which shows that, this wasn't just like a silly little slip up that's like, oops, oh no, like it happened, but I didn't mean it. And we're on the steps to rectify it. Like, as you pointed out, he put his teammates at risk. He could have put other fans he might have interacted with at risk. And I think what scares me the most about this kind of thing is that people, really look up to these celebrities. Like, it's one thing to be spreading misinformation, but to now have to think about, oh shit, people could be lying about being vaccinated. That's like the next level of how do you even begin to engage with that sort of behavior? It's I don't want to put ourselves in a situation where we're having to interrogate everyone and go through their medical history and everything, but it's when we continue to create these situations, it's almost making it a necessity, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, like, I don't necessarily I get why some people can get kind of defensive about, disclosing their vaccination status, right? And because, like, getting vaccines or not getting vaccines, and vaccine mandates versus not vaccine mandates, and masking and all this other great stuff has basically been the dominating conversation for at least mostly to most of 2020 and all of 2021. But the reason why it's been such a dominating conversation is because we're talking about a public health issue now. And I see a lot of conflation with people concerning their rights as an individual, and also, being able to to forego if they want this vaccination because of whatever type of thoughts or feelings or whatever that they have about it. But I'm going to also shut up right now, and I'm going to let Richard get into this particular conversation. What are your thoughts, Richard, when you read this?
I don't think I need to say anything. I think you two have covered everything. I'm going home. No, right. First of all, I had to look up who the Green Bay Packers were because I'm British. And
Okay. Well, hold on. I'm sorry. You said that word, so hold on. Fuck Green Bay. Continue.
yeah, Well, it's apparently an American football team. You probably call it football, but that's something different to us over here.
That's
So
what I heard.
American football's just rugby with armor. First of all, I want to get that out of the way. You know, we don't need the armor to play that game over here. But regarding the actual story, there's so many nuances and like subtleties and like little bits and different issues. I think that under the surface here. And I think the main focus, the main problem, as you've both already touched on, is that he appears to have lied.
Yeah.
Now, if he wants to go and ignore all the medical advice and research and just go to some kind, I think it said it was his personal doctor, the article, and get some homeopathic treatment, that's entirely fine. I'm not stopping anybody having their rights. If they live in the middle of the Arctic and they're clubbing seals for a living, and that's what they want to do, and then they're not within 100 miles of anyone, and they're not going to be, you go and live your rights. But we don't live in that society. We live amongst other people. And this is the point of the thing. You know, you've got a responsibility. And
Right.
if you want to go and get an alternative medicine instead of having the vaccination, and then you infect somebody else, to my mind, you should then be like, and I don't know if it has infected anyone else, but the potential is there.
Right.
And if it's shown that he has infected someone else, I think you should be criminally culpable for it. Because I've literally, within the last 2 weeks of recording, I know someone who has died from COVID, who ignored the instructions to stay at home if you had COVID. They went out. They infected someone else who fortunately recovered, but they themselves got really ill. They ended up on a ventilator, and within 2 weeks, they ended up dead. So I've now got a funeral to attend to because of people like this. And that is why they should be criminally culpable.
Yeah, I think I kind of was saying something similar because, you know, I definitely have some libertarian leanings. Like I don't want to force someone to wear a mask or take a jab, but the issue is that when you're expressing your right to not undergo certain treatments or something, that eventually at some point interferes with everyone else's right to just exist in the society that they were born in. Like they don't have, you know, people who are immune compromised who need extra protection don't have the privilege to be able to say, well, I'm just going to exercise my freedom on this matter. No,
Right.
like you making that choice is impacting other people, and your rights to freedom end where they impact someone else's rights to freedom. Those things have to be considered. So yeah, it's difficult because I totally understand the issue with mandates. You know, I don't want to force anyone to do something, but again, that right ends right where it interferes with someone else's, and that's
And should it be all about rights anyway? Because at the end of the day, I've got a right, and I wrote this in my show notes, I've got a right to go and drink 20 bottles of whiskey if I choose to. But why would you want to do that? You know it's a stupid thing to do. You know, you're not going to like live long from doing it. And it's the same with not taking the vaccination. But he's not just done this. He's not just chosen not to take the vaccination. He's apparently lied about it.
Yeah.
He's gone and he's put himself in the public sphere. And he's traveling around the country. He's probably, I dare say, meeting a lot of fans. He's working amongst his teammates. And he's putting all those people at risks.
Right.
And he's lied about it. And he knows he's doing it. And that to me is the most important thing. He's not just exercising his right to freedom. What he's doing is deliberately deceiving people.
Right. Right. Well, I wanted to bring up something from another article that I read just to get a little bit more context concerning this whole thing. And he recently went on Sirius XM on the Pat McAfee show. I'm not familiar with him. I guess that's a sports person. I don't know. But anyway, but one of the things that he said is that I am not an anti-vax flat earther. and he said that I have an allergy to an ingredient, never said which one, that's in the mRNA vaccines. Found that a long-term immunization protocol to protect myself, and I'm very proud of the research that went into it, even though he never said what it was. And he also noted that on the CDC's website, it says that if you have an allergy to any of the ingredients, that you should not get one of the mRNA vaccines. So those two, Moderna and Pfizer, were already out. Again, allegedly. And he also said that he had some issues concerning the J&J vaccine because of the clotting issues, even though that really only happened to a small percentage of people, but I digress. And he said the hearing of multiple people, again, a small population of people actually got this and no one died, had adverse events around J&J, and the J&J shot was not even an option at that point. So I will credit him for, I guess, like thinking about this, but my issue specifically with him is that, I know that there are people who are allergic to maybe something that's in the mRNA vaccines, and people who happen to be, have like some autoimmune, uh, conditions. And also, some people who are like allergic to shellfish may have like a more vitriol reaction, for lack of a better term. But even with people who have like a shellfish allergy, still for the most part recover, after they actually get the shot for the mRNA vaccine. So I'm curious for this person who plays American football, which is rugby with armor. And I think that Richard was kind of throwing shade on football players in the United States, saying that, hey, you need armor to play, and we just play free, because we're British and damn it. But anyway, I digress. I'm coming back to my point, which I forgot, but I'm going to remember in a minute. Anyway, there never has been any type of disclosure specifically from him about what exactly is it that could be an issue with any of these vaccines. He's just saying stuff. And I don't want to necessarily misrepresent anybody, and I don't necessarily want to straw man anybody, but at the same time, this interviews and the information that I found that's coming directly from here is vague as hell. And I'm thinking more of like, my dude, you just didn't want to get the shot. Let's just keep it a buck. Keep it 1,000%. Keep it a stack. As they say in my neck of the woods, again, fuck Green Bay. You didn't want to get it. For whatever reason.
It does seem very much like he's trying to, and fair enough if he has a genuine allergy, as an allergy. But
Sure.
the time to disclose that is before you're going to get the shot. It seems like he was told that let's just consider and be generous and say, yeah, you had a genuine allergy to it.
Sure.
When the thing came in about the all the players needing the shot, he should have disclosed that then.
Right.
Perhaps if it was genuine, which but if it was genuine, it seems that the reason he didn't is because he was scared of not being allowed to play and losing money.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a reason to lie when people's lives are at stake, and that's been most generous to him. If he's not disclosing this until after the fact and after he's been caught out, is it genuine? Like Cynthia says, it's been very vague about things.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very thick. People die. How many people die? Does he know that
Right.
information? From what I can gather, I think, is it 1 in a million people develop blood clots from it? That's literally the same rate as miracles. That is the mathematical rate of a miracle. So, is it that much of a risk to take?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like, and that was my issue with him, because especially like when he was asked straight up, no chaser, are you vaccinated? And he's like, oh, I'm immunized. I cannot say that word. Immunized, whatever.
Immunized?
We'll go with that one.
Immunized, yes. Yes, I'm what Arden said. And he's and to that, people are taking that, oh, you got the vaccine and you just went on. You never disclosed anything about a homeopathic treatment. You never disclosed anything about you having this conversation with your doctor about being allergic to anything. This is all after the fact, after you get infected, after you have possibly put other people at risk because you didn't want to, or you or because you felt or whatever that you shouldn't get, the Fauci ouchie,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think there's even if you weren't to force him to disclose, whatever allergy he may or may not have, or whatever treatments he may be getting, like if what he was doing was evidence-based and approved by the league he worked through, he could very easily just say, I'm not interested in disclosing, but the treatment I've gotten has been approved by, like, the people I work for. And that's all you have to say. You don't have to disclose stuff. So like the whole he doesn't have to disclose thing is very much the most charitable interpretation, because like, even by that standard, what he did was wrong and could have put people's lives at risk. And hopefully for his sake and everyone's sake, it didn't. But it's a risk, and that's not okay. People
Yeah.
aren't pawns in a weird, morbid chess game.
And I like my chess with wooden pieces, but anyway, I digress.
It seems not to be the only person in sports who's doing this though, because there was the basketball team, I think it was, who also kind of, there were a lot of people within that sport who seem opposed to it, and there was one one quote from one of the articles relating to a player, Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, that
who,
was our next guy we were going to talk about.
yeah, he had issues with the NBA's protocols around vaccination. And in an article from the Rolling Stone, I don't know why I'm laughing, it's not funny. In an article from Rolling Stone, he stated that it was an Instagram post he made, and
Yes.
it claimed that secret societies are implementing
Yes.
vaccines in a plot to connect black people to a master computer for a plan of Satan.
Yes.
Now, there's one level of not disclosing things because and you want to have alternative medicine, and then there's
Right.
a whole other level of things that you can go to.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to talk specifically about, Kyrie Irving, because like Kyrie Irving has been very vocal about, being against the vaccines, even though he never stated if he has gotten vaccine or not. I would assume not, especially since like he's not allowed to play in states that have vaccine mandates. I believe that there are some special dispensation for away games, but not necessarily for his home state, New York, and some other states or California. And the thing about him specifically is that even though like a lot of people have been giving him like a lot of smoke about it because he's been vocal about being against it, unlike Aaron Rodgers, at least like he's kind of upfront with his crazy oh, I'm sorry, upfront with his thoughts about these particular vaccines. We'll fix that in post. Then but some of the things that he has been saying specifically, because like I remember reading on Twitter a friend of mine saying that Aaron Rodgers has been playing all this time, and he was not vaccinated, and now he has COVID, right? But everybody was like dragging Kyrie Irving, and but my thing is, it's like when I was reading the Rolling Stone article about some of the things that he said on Instagram, I'm like, yo, to be honest with you, and I know I'm not that great of a person, I would drag him too. I mean, come on now. And here's the thing, specifically with, and I know that I've said this on this show and also on other shows when I talked about the vaccines, and even with some of my patients when I was trying to speak with them about, why it would be in their best interest to get vaccinated. that I understand specifically, Black people's distrust of the healthcare system. It is warranted, you know, and there have been terrible, horrible things that have been done to Black people, specifically in America, in the name of health progress or medical progress. However, I think that a lot of things that people do not keep in mind, specifically even with this group of people or my group of people, is that COVID affected our community just as bad as like everybody, socioeconomically, mortality rates, and even when it came to access to care. Um, because like clinics and hospitals are not as prevalent in predominantly African and American neighborhoods. So if they needed treatment because they got infected, it was going to be a lot. It was going to be more difficult for them to be able to get it only because of the access to healthcare, and there's still implicit bias and racism in healthcare as well. So we have all those particular factors that are playing against us when it even comes to this. Matter of fact, I remember reading something from the Congressional Black Caucus that said that when they were talking about COVID infections, when on the onslaught of it, and they were seeing the mortality rates that were coming in African American neighborhoods, they would say often, when America gets a cold, Black people get Black people get pneumonia, and this is what happens. And it kind of disappointed me, specifically with this person being, a NBA player. People look up to him, children look up to him. He has a platform and all these different things, and he's saying this stuff. People are going to listen to him and take what he says for truth value. And none of this stuff is like unfounded, and none of the stuff that he was saying is founded, rather. And then when the article even talked about how Kareem Abdul-Jabbar said that there should be zero tolerance for this type of behavior, and people who were not vaccinated should not be allowed to play, he got dragged for saying that. And I'm just like, I don't understand why we are dragging people when they want folk to assume some type of social responsibility to make sure the people are safe. I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think I don't want people to lie, right? And I don't want people to feel pressured in the way that was it Aaron Rodgers? I'm blanking on the name already.
Yeah.
Felt right. So like I realized a lot of people would rather like lie than change their behavior. But I think there's a lot of truth to that. That some people are just going to lie or spread misinformation, and we're getting to a point where this has impacted just all of our lives for almost 2 years now.
Right.
Um, and if you aren't willing to do your part to step up and help us get out of this situation, so that we can go back to playing basketball without needing a specific vaccine or something, to get to that point, we're going to need to go through a period where maybe there are some hard rules like that. It's uncomfortable, but I think, yeah, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was spot on with that. I also noticed that quote. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Agreed.
think it's important to note as well. I think it was it Kareem Abdul-Jabbar who was talking about because he was talking from the Muslim perspective.
Hmm.
It's important to note that just because when Kyrie Irving mentioned it being a plan for Satan, I think having a voice from the religious perspective as well, because
Hmm.
sometimes it's not just ethnic communities, but it's also like religious communities in general who were opposing these things, and
Right.
having a voice from a religious community promoting vaccination and promoting these not being able to play if you're not vaccinated and putting other people's life in danger is actually a good thing. And I think we should acknowledge that. And that can hearing a voice from your own community can often speak much louder than hearing a voice from outside it. So, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter how many people from outside are saying, no, you shouldn't be vaccinated. If
Hmm.
you've got another religious person saying you should, then you're more inclined to believe to that. So, all credit to him for doing that.
Oh, actually, you know who said that? It was Celtic center Enes Kanter, who is a devout Muslim. He
Right. Okay.
said, and
Mm.
this is what his quote was specifically from the article, which is in the show notes below, people. If a guy's not getting vaccinated because of his religion, I feel like we are in a time where religion and science have to go together. I've talked to a lot of religious guys, and I'm like, it saves people's lives. So what is more important than that? And
Yeah.
yeah, I appreciated him saying that.
Mm.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if I know how it's possible that religion and science can go together, but
I
I
don't either, but you know.
appreciate the message, and I think it's a good thing that he said it.
Right. I mean, like, that's what he said. I ain't saying that. But you know, I still appreciated you,
Yeah.
Yeah.
center from Celtics. I don't have to say fuck Celtics, but you know, for saying that specifically, you know, thank you.
I think another important point from the article regarding the basketball players is it did mention that these conversations, these anti-vax conversations, are happening in the dressing rooms, and this is where a lot of people are getting the misinformation from.
Yeah.
And that's sad that these influential players are like being influenced by each other and then
Yeah.
going out and influencing other people. It said Kyrie Irving was visiting a school. Those kids are looking up to him. He's a hero to some of those kids, and they're seeing him coming in without a mask, and they might be reading the Instagram posts or the tweets or whatever it is he's doing about that, and reading stuff, and they're being influenced by that, and that to me is so sad.
Yeah, especially
Mm.
since now we have FDA approval to vaccinate children between 5 to 12 years old now. They just get like their dosage level is smaller than like a person that is 12 years older, and I believe that the only one in the United States specifically that has been FDA approved was Pfizer. So and especially when we even have like states that are also kind of stuck on silly with, you know, with should children go to school with masks, should they not go to school with masks. I think that I was even reading an article earlier that a judge in Philadelphia threw out the mask mandate for kids in school. So this is a time where we really need to get out of this whole making a public health issue or a public health crisis like political. Like, it really should be about what does the science say and what can we do as a nation, as a globe, right? Because like all of us are being affected by this particular infection, to do the right things in order for us to keep people safe. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So let's get a couple just final thoughts from you guys before we can go ahead and wrap this up and go to our next segments.
Follow the guidelines in your area. Get vaccinated. Wear a mask. Be safe. That's all.
Yeah. And if
Mm.
you choose not to, and you go out and you do infect people and you kill people, don't sit there shifting the blame because it's entirely your fault, and you should feel responsible for that because it is your fault. Just get vaccinated. It's easiest solution.
Exactly. And don't go to the Antarctic and club seals because seals are cute.
Definitely don't do that.
I was like, no, that's horrible. They're cute. They go the whole thing. Okay, anyway. So well, because of your dedicated viewership and spreading the good news of the faithless nonprofits, we are now wait, hold on. All right, let me read. Okay. We now have more than 9,000 subscribers. Hey! 9,928,000 as of this recording.
So close. So close.
So close. But thank you to both our veteran subscribers and welcome to our new subscribers. This is a fantastic milestone. Well, once we hit 10,000 subscribers, we will be able to start doing fundraisers. So if you are watching us now and haven't subscribed yet, you can help us get there by doing so now, like right now. So share the link to our channel with your friends, your family members, your co-workers, that neighbor guy you don't like, the neighbor guy I don't like. I think I got about a few, and anyone and everyone. And let's get the word out there. So, yeah, let's get the word out there, y'all, so that we can start helping with those fundraisers. And once you have subscribed, click the like button and set your notification bell to on so that you are always notified when the Nonprofits episode premieres every Sunday at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. And are you aware the atheist community of Austin has another YouTube channel? Are you? Did you guys know?
What? No. What is it?
Well, you should be, because if you check out the Atheist Experience Network, a channel where you can find all ACA shows in podcast form, subscribe at tiny.cc/AEN podcast to listen to episode of the Nonprofits, the Atheist Experience, Secular Sexuality, and all of the other ACA shows so you don't miss a single episode. End scene.
Well done. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you. I fulfilled my contract obligation. Maybe. I don't know. All right. So let's go ahead and move on into our next segment. Richard, I believe that you are going to take us in here.
Yeah, this story comes from CBS News. William Neil Doc Gallagher, a Texan Christian radio host, has unfortunately conned his elderly listeners out of millions. And we're talking around 32 million. 32 million has been conned from these people. That's a hell of a lot of money to get from people who place their trust in you. So, you know, in a way, you know, these people gifted him their money, and in return, he was gifted a 30-year prison sentence by Judge Elizabeth Beach. I don't know who Judge Elizabeth Beach is, but I like her. This is exactly what should have happened to him. The only downside to this is he's 80 years old, and a 30-year prison sentence to an 80-year-old. You know, how much did if it had been a little bit younger, maybe 60 when he was caught, and he could have enjoyed all those years in prison, that'd have been much better. But yeah, this is one of those stories which it's not entirely surprising, but by the same time, it's still really, really sad. So, you know, what are your thoughts on this? Because this kind of stuff really winds me up that people are getting away with this kind of stuff. I'd like some balance from you two lovely ladies.
Well, I know that like my first thought when I read this is like I have a thought at least once a week, right? Where I'm always like, you know, I could sell out really hard right now. Just pull like a hard left turn, like join the church, maybe detransition or something, and be like, oh my God, Jesus saved me. If you give me all your money, I can make sure that you get into heaven, just like I'm definitely going to. And while I definitely know that my conscience would never let me do that, it's super satisfying to see that the people who do get super fucked up like that, do super terrible things like that, get caught and get busted. But in reality, though, I definitely think it's hard because there's this balance of like, obviously these people are victims, right? They're preyed upon. It is in no way their fault that this man took advantage of them. However, this comes because they all believe in the shared religion, which gives them this false sense of like security and trust with a man that they don't know. This stranger who absolutely, they have no reason to believe he has their best interests at heart, but because they believe in the same God, allegedly, you know, I won't make any claims on whether or not, I don't know their brains and what they actually do or don't believe, but because they believe they have this shared belief, they were willing to just hand over money to this man. And that's what shocks me. Like, I remember even thinking just paying like tithing in church on Sunday seemed like a fucking crime. Like, I had to get up on my Sunday morning and I have to pay you for this. That's not okay in my book. But these people went above and beyond with that principle. You know, I want to have, and I do have compassion for the people who are affected by this, but it definitely also rings in with like, this is why we talk about, you know, the harms of religion, because it can lead you to trust someone that you absolutely should not. But I don't know how that lands with you guys.
Well, I will say, like, just reading in the article and just doing a little bit more digging, he was on Christian radio for years.
Mhm.
And there's like a listener base right there. And he one of the things that I believe that I don't know if it was this article or the New York Times article that I read, that he would close out his radio show saying, see you at church on Sunday, right? So he already presented himself as this trustworthy person that was deemed by God, and that this particular uh um uh I know it was a Ponzi scheme, but investment that you're making is God ordained and anointed, because the Lord has blessed me, and now I'm going to bless you with this knowledge too. And another thing that was his MO is that not only did he go on his radio show, he went into churches. So the pastors of these churches, the ministers, whomever, the elder, or, back when I used to be a Christian, the angel of the house, said to bring them in order for them. Well, that's what they used to say.
I love that. That's fantastic.
Oh, y'all, quick, just indulge me. This is also part of my my ACA contract, with my preacher voice. Uh, Giving the honor to God who is the head of my life. We're giving honor to the angel of this house, to the elders, deacons, and ministers, choir members, praise and worship. We just want to say, welcome you once, I welcome you twice. I welcome you in the name of Jesus Christ. Okay, I'm back. But this is what happened. The church leadership would actually open the door for Dr. Money, Dr. Gallagher, to come on in and give people investment advice, and present himself as an upstanding person and who will take care of your money. But a lot of people got bilked out of their money, and the people who he really targeted the most were older people. So can you just imagine being like an older person, a senior citizen? You worked all your life, you have you have like built up a nest egg, through your pension, 401k plans, maybe some modest investments, and you're ready to retire. And then you were thinking that in order for me to have like a really good money foundation so that I will be okay by the time I retire, and this guy say he's a man of God, I'm going to invest with his financial group, and then this happens. I mean, can you just imagine how devastating that you would feel?
Yeah, that was the thing in the story that really got me, and it is kind of a story of two halves. It's a cautionary tale, and
Yeah.
it's also an opportunity to kind of teach about skepticism, which I'm all about, teaching people about better thinking. But that was the quote that really gripped me from this article, where it said some of Gallagher's victims spoke about losing trust in people and the depression they now suffer because of losing their savings through Gallagher's company. And
Yeah.
that's so sad that we can sit here and say, well, you shouldn't have done it. It's easy to do that. But if we
Mhm.
just put ourselves in their position for a minute, and take it out of the religious context, because this can happen to anybody. It's not just a religious thing where people get conned. And just imagine being that person who's saved all your life. You've worked hard, you've saved up for your retirement, for your grandchildren, for your children to go to college, or whatever that money's for. and all of a sudden it's been taken away by someone who's lied to you.
Right.
That must absolutely devastate and shatter you to the very core of your existence. How could you ever trust anyone again?
Yeah.
That is really, really sad.
Yeah. I think that there was one of the victims talked about that, like how, she has lost trust in a lot of people now because of what happened to her specifically. I think there was even another quote that said that um I don't trust anyone or anybody anymore except for God and my family. And I'm like, well, maybe you need to add God to that, honey, because dude said that he was coming from God to tell you how to do your money. I'm just saying, but that's just my opinion. Just saying. Arden?
Yeah, it's definitely crushing, I mean, we live in a capitalist society, which means you're going to be spending a lot of your life working hard, spending hours of the only life we know we have, putting in labor for someone else so that maybe your kids, or like you were pointing out, your grandkids could have a better life.
Mhm.
And to have that then taken away from you, I'm sure makes a lot of these people feel like a lot of that work was for nothing. A lot of that wasted time was genuinely wasted and for nothing at that point. And so definitely my heart goes out to them.
Yeah.
But I think, as you said, Richard, I hope this is taken as like a cautionary tale for people, that just because this man is rich and believes in the same God as you does not mean that you should trust him. And hopefully this will be also a general warning for similar schemes, because you're right, this isn't just a religious thing, although I definitely think that was a probably significant factor in what made these people trust
Yeah.
Doc Gallagher
Definitely.
specifically.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I definitely believe that he used his platform as this religious Christian radio host and used that as like his I guess like interest to authority, that he was to a person to be trusted, and also the churches that he went to, that's how he was introduced as well, by the church leadership to talk to people about their money. I mean, like, I remember specifically, being in church and having like quote unquote financial gurus coming in to tell us how to deal with our money, and some of them actually had like similar financial groups. I never really gave money in, because at the time I was a college student, so I was broke, so I had nothing to give. but but I can only imagine. I don't know what happened with some of the other people who did invest, but I mean, like, maybe some people made out okay, but maybe some did not. And again, like, I think that there should be definitely some thought patterns to people, especially when they're talking about like giving over lots and lots of money to invest, that they really should do their due diligence and homework on the person, the company, the organization, or whatever that they are investing in, to make sure that they're going to actually get a return on their money. You know,
Mhm.
I mean, and you're right, Richard and Arden, when you were talking about like this doesn't just happen in religious institutions. People who may even be from your community because they look like you, they're part of your culture, they speak the same language as you, all this other stuff, and they present themselves in certain ways, could also look at people can look upon them as trustworthy. I can think of, I'm not going to say the name, but I can think of this one particular guy who is on YouTube. He also shows up to a lot of the different, black shows and media and things of that nature, and knows like a lot of like, entertainers, who also presents himself as a financial fixer, and even started a whole real estate fund that he was encouraging people in the community to invest in. But the way that the contract was given to these people, the language was so slick, and if you and there was no guarantee that you would get any type of return on your investment, none whatsoever. And I even remember like a coworker was telling me that her and her husband was thinking about investing in this with this person. I was like, oh, I need you to stop. I need you to look into something else. I don't have a problem with you investing, but not with them.
Mm.
Just not with them. And and so like I started to give them like all this background on this person and how they have like a really seedy past when it comes to people doing business with this person, especially when it comes to real estate. It was like one story where the guy had like had a friend who inherited a house and some property, and he helped his friend sell it, but he took all the money.
Oh, wow. Oh my God, that's terrible. Jeez.
They're still in court to this day, and that I believe that particular transaction happened like over 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. I think, you know, especially after, I mean, obviously what you just mentioned is older than COVID, but especially, following COVID and like the economic devastation that a lot of families are experiencing, I'm sure a lot of people are desperate, and really looking for that kind of olive branch and
Sure.
just some sort of help out of desperate times. And that's been, people having desperate times has been a thing since all of human history.
Sure.
Uh, Everyone's looking for someone who can help, lift them up out of that. And it's really disgusting to see people posing as the person who, is the would-be messiah to lift you up out of those circumstances, and only to stab you in the back while they're doing it.
Yeah. Well,
And that's
it
exactly why
I'm sorry.
education is so important in
Mm,
these. That just learn skepticism sometimes for kind of religious folk seems like a bit of a dirty or dangerous word. So we don't have to call it that, but you need to be thinking better across the board, and it's just don't believe in bad ideas. If you're given things like astrology, or like in the first story we did with vaccine denial, or religion, if you're prone to bad thinking in one area of your life, it will seep into another area. So if you're listening to a sweet talking Christian pastor who's promising you an eternal life, and you know give us your tithing and things like that, and you think, oh, that's harmless enough, it doesn't hurt anybody else if I believe that, you're harming yourself because you're letting that seep into other areas of your life, whether you know it or not. If you're going to fall for it in one area, it's going to be there in another. And it doesn't matter whether it's a used car salesman or somebody fleecing you out of millions. It's the same bad thinking across the board that gets you there.
no truer
Yeah.
words. No truer words. Well, there is like a silver lining to this. They did. I believe that the judge that was in charge of the case did assign a person to this case to help recover some of the money. And The person is named Thomas, who's a lawyer at the Brown Fox in Dallas, Texas. And so far, he has distributed about $3.3 million to the victims, according to the records. And he's also sued the Salem Media, which is the radio show or the radio company that Doc Gallagher was hosting his show on, so that they can get some more, funding for the people who were victimized from this person. So that's a silver lining. So good
Yeah.
luck, Mr. Thomas, and getting those funds for those people, and hopefully maybe we can revisit the story, to see how that distribution is going, and if they were successful in being able to sue the media company in order to get more money for the victims.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And
Indeed.
Mr. Gallagher got his 30-year prison term. So
Yeah,
let's hope he enjoys the rest of his life in prison.
right. Maybe, you need to think about what you did, Mr. Gallagher, and, make peace with your God who you said anointed you to do this. Allegedly. Well, let's take a break, y'all, from our conversation. And if you didn't tune in to other ACA shows not this week, but last week, here's what you missed.
Yeah, it's a generally good idea to not just go up and tug on anybody's tail under any circumstances, but in particular, if that tail is connected to somebody's rectum, you could be doing some damage.
Then you're probably going to get the first bit of life, and then when those bits of life interact with other bits of life, new bits of life happen, and then suddenly you got people and the internet and JFK conspiracies and all kinds of stuff.
Dude, we gotta get our TV show picked up by Netflix. Like, what do we do? What do we add? Like, let's like impregnate people with parasitic eggs.
Michael wants to talk about how to talk to theists. I'm speaking your language, right, Nate? With the about, right? That's
yeah. Oh yeah.
It's
You
just,
betcha,
it's just
bud.
cultural sensitivity.
I can summarize that, which is,
Hey, I think you're really cool, Matt. I don't think you've had a good conversation with a really smart theist, but I'm a really smart theist, and Sam Harris agrees with this point that I made, and somebody else agrees with this point that I made. So let me point out how science actually presupposes the existence of God, and that philosophical naturalism, which I know you don't hold to, which is irrelevant to this.
I mean, you just keep going and going and going. Try decaf, first of all.
Well, I was a boot to get a cup of decaf in the middle of the show.
Yeah, I was there for that call with the decaf, and I kind of feel like I needed like the opposite of caffeine after listening to the call. I'll tell you that much.
Oh my gosh, tell me about it. But that's like everybody when they call into the ACA. But or at the atheist experience, like especially when presuppositionalist, I've been practicing to say that how to say that word for one day when I'm actually, asked to do one of these shows. But it's okay. I did
Just use presup. Use presup. It's much easier.
Right, presup. Presupposing, the existence of God. And I was like, there is no methodology to presuppose your God exists. Anywho. Well, anyway, that was a great midstream thingy. So yeah. I mean, you guys just check out the ACA shows. They are all great. They really are. So let's go ahead and get into our next topic. And Arden, I believe that you are leading us in.
Yeah, so this next article comes to us from LGBTQ Nation, authored by Bill Browning, titled "The Religious Right is crowing that they won the Virginia governor's race by sowing fear of trans people." So basically what the author goes through here is talking about the recent local elections that were taking place all over the country, but specifically focusing on Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin, and how basically the religious right has stooped to unabashedly, perhaps even proudly weaponizing the culture wars and identity politics to drum up fear in their base, to motivate them to vote, to get the big bad boogeyman of the a 15-year-old trans girl on your daughter's soccer team out of their life, because that's clearly a terrifying and society ruining thing, and we definitely should be legislating against that. Totally support that. No. But yeah, I mean, I think this article does touch on the fact that, on the people on the left were often accused of over-identifying with these labels, and we're the people who are always using identity politics. But it's so ironic to me, because I think most of us on the left, and maybe if y'all disagree, feel free to say that, but I think most of us kind of wish these labels could be a nothing burger. I would love the fact that I'm trans to be something that people are like, okay, don't really care. Like, it's just an irrelevant fact of the matter, And it's the religious right who is constantly talking about these things and drumming up these things. I could spend hours and days debunking every one of these points over and over and over and over and over and over again about trans girls on sports teams and trans girls in bathrooms and things like this, or critical race theory, which we'll also get into as part of the Youngkin thing as well. but there comes a point where that's a waste of time because they don't care about the facts of the matter. They don't care that trans girls don't actually pose a risk to people in the bathroom, or that there may be some really niche instance where banning an individual from a specific sport is warranted, but that these blanket bans of entire groups of people don't serve any purpose other than to exclude young people from, community building and things like this. They don't care about the facts of the matter. These things are just what motivate their base. And it's really unfortunate that we're at this place, and I'm kind of at a loss for words. So I would love to hear what you all have to say about this article.
Yeah, I mean, I have things in my notes, but I want to tell a story, if you don't mind. I love allegories, So I was speaking with a friend of mine, and we were talking about something completely different, and we kind of got on the subject matter of trans people in sports, and they're not for it, and I'm like, what's the big deal? And they brought up this particular incident about, I believe it was a MMA fighter who was who got I believe that they did their transition in 2006 in Thailand. And but they did it when they were in their 30s, and then came into MMA sports, and they were in a fight with a cisgender woman. Now, the cisgender fighter was like a 50-degree black belt, something ridiculous that I have no idea what these black belt notches are, but let's just go with that. And she agreed to do the fight with the transgender MMA fighter, and the transgender person ended up fracturing the cisgender woman's skull. And then all of a sudden, like, there was this like huge backlash concerning, like, transgender people actually competing in this particular sport, with cisgender women. And so because like one of the things that I was bringing up to the individual, and like, you guys know what I do for a living. I work with people who are infected with HIV. And the population of people who I work with are mostly women, whether they are trans or cisgender. And I know that, and one of the things that I told my friend is that one of the things you have to understand specifically about trans people is that they exist on a spectrum, just like every human being in the entire earth. You have transgender people who will, they don't, because for different factors, they may be either at the beginning of their transition, and you can definitely tell what their gender was assigned at birth. And then you have some transgender people who you wouldn't even know unless they told you. And I have all those type of patients. I have all of them within my caseload. And and there's other things that must be considered, especially when you're talking about people participating in sports. Like, if they were wanting to participate in possibly doing like maybe puberty blockers because they were they realized that they wanted to do their transition a little bit earlier, or stop that particular development at that time, that's going to definitely make a difference in how this person develops as an adult. And unfortunately, none of these particular sports legislation, specifically like in Texas and Idaho and all these other places, take any of that into consideration. And so then, when going back to my story, then it was like, well, that should not be, this person's fractured this woman's skull, etc., etc. And then I happened to look up the statistics of head injuries in MMA sports. You all know what the statistic is?
I would love to hear it.
1 in 3 fighters, whether
Shocker.
If you are cis, trans, hetero, whatever, MMA sports participants are likely 1 in 3 to suffer some type of head injury, no matter who is fighting you. So this is definitely a hazard that comes with this sport.
Yeah.
So and matter, I even brought up another person who, it was 2 cisgender women fighting in Las Vegas. This one woman ended up getting her head bashed so bad that her whole face completely ballooned up, and she was getting blood clots in her head at that time that she was fighting. She didn't even know that she was injured. They had to stop the fights because they saw how big her head was starting to swell. So I mean, like, so this could happen to anybody. I mean, like, and I really hate that we're taking like these anecdotal events and then just making like these blanketed decisions based on how we're supposed to proceed when it comes to people who are participating in sports and whatever type of crazy biased ideas that people will come up with. And I'm done with my story, so somebody please take over.
Yeah, I want to give Richard a chance to pipe in, but I also think it's worth pointing out, well, that's totally true. Even in the instance of these dramatic anecdotal stories about like Fallon Fox and this skull bashing, they love this imagery of she smashed this woman's skull in. We're talking about legislation that
Right.
blocks children from participating in sports at their schools in most of these instances. Furthermore, I think a lot of the studies that have been cited that show that like, people who are assigned male at birth, people who are assigned female at birth have different sporting performance. When they measure cis men and trans women differently, even pre-hormone therapy at a baseline, they often have different averages, like lower averages than cis men for sporting performance, and their performance is mitigated by hormones. Or by getting medical treatment at an appropriate time or for an appropriate length of time. So like they want to portray that because, or I think they believe that because cis men and trans women are both assigned male at birth, that any data that evaluates cis men must also then be directly applicable to trans women, when it's not the case. That's not what the evidence seems to suggest. So yeah, it's pretty disgusting, and it's so far removed from reality. But Richard, I want to give you a chance to pipe in. Sorry,
No, it's very interesting actually, because this is what I was going to talk about. A lot of people in our community, not just kind of the Youngkins campaign, kind of all American type. A lot of people in across communities would say that I don't really have a voice here because I'm a white cis guy. And you know what? I say bollocks to that. And do you know why I say bollocks to that? I say bollocks to that because I'm not speaking for Arden and I'm not speaking for Cynthia, because as you've just heard, they're perfectly capable of speaking for themselves. However, there are a lot of white cis men who kind of on Youngking's side and share the same opinion as him, who are borderline and who are in communities where you're not allowed to have a voice because you would be shot down for it. So I'm speaking for them, and I'm telling you, it is absolutely fine to support transgender rights, and it is absolutely fine to teach critical race theory as history. It's absolutely fine to support communities you are not a part of. And you don't, just because your church or your right wing or left wing or whatever wing it is, politics is telling you can't do something. Think for yourself. Think for yourself and have your voice. And if it's too dangerous to have that voice, it is okay to have those thoughts. Nobody's advocating for you to go out and speak out if you're going to get beaten up for it. Nobody wants that for you. If you're in a really strict right-wing Christian area, don't speak out if you can't. But if internally you're a white cis guy and you're thinking, well, actually, I do support transgender rights and I do support critical race theory, but I can't say publicly, that's fine. Just be aware that it is okay to have those thoughts. You know, you can support people without speaking for them.
Right. Thank you, Richard. I appreciate that. This is from a cis white person all the way from across the pond. And for that, we say thank you.
We do.
We really do. And let me know after the show is over, what does bullocks mean? Matter of fact, go ahead and define bullocks right now for me.
Bollocks.
Bollocks, yes.
Testicles, my dear.
Thank you. Because it is still Thursday where you are. So it's Thursday where you are, thank you. But and I guess this is like appropriate to kind of like take this particular segment, because like since we're still talking about the Virginia race, what all these dog whistles were basically used in order for youngkins to win. We have like the transphobia. That was a dog whistle. We have the banning, because like one of the things that Youngkin said that he would do is that he was going to ban abortion, in Virginia, and then which is horrible. And then you had this whole thing, and we're going to ban critical race theory, which is crazy, because critical race theory is not taught in grammar in high schools. Like, it is not. Critical race theory is not taught in grammar in high schools. It's not even taught at the undergraduate level. Critical race theory is part of critical theory, which is a law, Judas, JD type theory that's taught on that particular level. It is not taught in elementary and high schools. I just want to say that one more time for the people in the back, just in case you didn't hear me. And especially since, like, I don't know if you guys got a chance to even take a look at the other article that was entitled "How Dumb Our Politics Have Gotten," where the voter, which in this particular video went viral, but the Good Liars interviewed a Virginia voter who was asked, what is the most important thing to you in this race? Arden about to laugh. And he said that what's the most important thing to me is that, our children and what they're being taught. And, one of the things that we should not be teaching is critical race theory. And then the interviewer was like, well, why is it that it shouldn't be taught? He said, well, there's some aspects of it. I'm not going to get into that right now, but it shouldn't be taught. And he said, well, what is critical race theory? And the guy was like, oh, well, I don't really get in and know the particulars, but what I do know, I don't like it.
Yeah, that was a my girlfriend goes to another school move, like, ooh, just dodge it. I don't want to get into it right now.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, like, which is kid, and like, this is going back, sorry, Richard. I'm so sorry that you have to be exposed to American politics,
Yeah, likewise.
Like, oh gosh. But one of the things that this particular tactic of dog whistling is not new, right? This is a tactic that actually was started like in the late 60s, early 70s, to actually get Nixon elected to president. We all heard Lee Atwater, right? Okay. Okay.
Go ahead, explain it anyway.
Lee Atwater was a political strategist that actually worked for the Nixon campaign back in the late 60s. And he utilized the term the Southern strategy. He actually was interviewed by ABC News in the 1980, 1981. And one of the things that he said was that right after the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was ratified, you started to have to kind of like police your language when it came to, speaking about other groups of people like women, like minorities, like, and the like, right? And and one of the things that, especially during the 50s and the 60s of the civil rights movement, like, it was nothing to throw out the N word. Absolutely nothing. So one of the things that he said, well, okay, now that this particular law has passed, you know, you can't say the N word anymore. He said you can't say N word, N word, N word, N word. So you have to use coded words like states' rights or law and order or family values. and
Mhm.
and these are just codified words to basically, be as what they call dog whistles to voters, so that they can use the same type of biased, prejudiced, racist sensibilities in their politics without using the unpolitical correct words, right? And this is what we have seen ad nauseum in a lot of these elections, especially what happened in Virginia, and especially like when you talk about like trans girls specifically, participating in sports, and even with the legislatures making these particular bills, and they're not using any type of medical science research in order for them to even come up with a policy that's plausible for everybody who could be involved. you know Same thing with critical race theory. Like, even like in Texas, when they passed a law to say that, okay, we can teach certain things in schools, it was just a watered down version of of history, that you even had to omit some of the people that, or some of the things that they said, while they were going through these lessons. Like, there were certain aspects of Frederick Douglass you couldn't talk about. There's some things about Susan B. Anthony's work that you couldn't talk about. Like, all these different things, in order for them to say, hey, we passed critical race theory, but not really. And it's more just to say that we don't want to lean to science, and we don't want to actually, teach history, because it will make other people, especially like some of the other people who are rallying against CRT, saying that we don't want to make white children feel bad. And I'm like,
Yeah.
The teaching of history should never, ever, ever be ruled by politics.
Right.
It's that simple.
Mm.
And the thing is, black people have been institutionally like vetoed against, if you like, for want of a better word, held down. That Why wouldn't you want to teach that? Why wouldn't you want to teach that this has happened to a group of people in our society? And moving forward, regardless of what happened in the past, moving forward, we want to ensure that doesn't happen to any section of our society again. That, teaching history is going to teach you those lessons. And just because somebody has, probably Christian, I'm just going to throw that in there, has kind of got a problem with this, that's not enough to, kind of sneak these in, go into school boards. We all love Texas school board. We've done so many
Always.
articles on the Texas school
Oh
board.
my gosh.
Try and sneak things in, regardless of what it is, whether it's like creationism or flat earth or whatever it is. They try and sneak in under the guise of science. It's bollocks, Cynthia.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think one thing that really made me sad was in the CNN article about critical race theory and how Youngkin's campaign employed that. There was a video embedded where they even interviewed some of the students in the school, right, who are seeing their parents and their administrators go through these things, and it really made me sad that the kids were like, I'm exhausted for my administrators. Like, they are just trying to educate us. Like, we don't even have critical race theory in our school. I'm willing to bet they're not afraid of the trans girl on the middle school soccer team. I don't think it's that big of a deal to kids. I don't think they're worried about this. But the only way that these Republican politicians seem to get elected is by doing these lies. Critical race theory teaches white kids that they're evil. They have to make themselves the victim. Adding trans kids to sports is going to cause some girl to lose her scholarship or cause someone to get assaulted. You know, the only way they can get elected is by doing these backdoor lies and the redlining and redistricting and changing. They always have to do these sneaky undercutting ways to get approval from their constituents. And I think what really floors me the most about it is just how many people fucking fall for it, and how many parents are at these weird confessionals at school boards being like, I'm going to tell you why I know everything about critical race theory and why it's cancel culture. It's like, Karen, go home. Nobody in this administration needs you here. Trust me.
Right.
You're not contributing anything.
And take your Aquanet with you, honey.
Yeah. It's just like, I'm totally on board with the notion that maybe like parents want to have some sort of voice in, you know, what their kids are going through at a school day. Like, you're not there for, you know, however many hours while your kid's away at school. I understand if a parent has concerns and probably needs a little empathy walking through that. But I don't think that us endorsing like these weird group therapy sessions at a school board meeting are you know, really going to give parents any clarity. I think it, if anything, just affirms the misinformation that they already believe to be true in their head. And yeah, it's scary. Like, the right and the left live in such like informational, like the distinct worlds, you know, like what is true. I mean, obviously there's a truth, there's a fact of the matter, just despite what people think, but the worlds that people are operating in are just so radically different. It feels like something has to give soon. And whether it's like kicking parents out of these meetings or changing the names of critical race theory to like, I made a joke about this. I know people have always made jokes about like universal income, changing that to like the Patriot paycheck. Like, we need to change critical race theory to like the Patriots history or something. And then all of a sudden, all the Republicans are going to be like, if Patriots history isn't in our schools, I'm pulling my kid out.
Yo,
like, good.
Hey, that's what 45 tried to do when he commissioned the 1776 commission. That's kind of what after this I forgot the Rodolfo person that was on Fox News, you know, brought it up the first time, and then I believe that Trump called in and was like, you know, what is this thing? And then they got to talking. And then next thing you know, we have the 1776 commission that was basically a whole rally against the 1619 project that was published by the New York Times and used as an educational tool to teach history in schools. So the crazy thing about the world that we live in is that there's so much information that's available at your fingertips. But what is missing is the critical thinking behind how to feel the information that you are getting to see if the information is the most closest thing to fact as possible.
Exactly that. Exactly that.
And this is why we are here. This is why we are here to really, you know, try to add to the discourse, to really to tell people. And I would say, like, if there's any type of call to action, it would really be to make yourself available to learn civics and to really devote yourself into critical thinking so that you don't fall prey to a lot of the misinformation that is in our society today. That's the best way I can put it. So
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
The great thing about that kind of article for me was, it's not the great thing, it's not a good thing, but the thing that made me laugh was just how easily people follow, and how little critical thinking. You touched upon it at the start, Cynthia, when you was talking about the guy who was asked about critical race theory, and it was just like, you know, it's like, do you know what critical race theory is? I don't know.
Right.
Do you know when it was taught? Well, I don't know, but I know it's bad.
Right.
You know,
Don't like it.
it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. You know, stop reading magazine headlines and go into the article and see the sources and go do your research. You know,
Right.
it really is that simple. It's all we need to do. Get good thinking out there. Get good thinking. It'll
Right.
stop you not knowing what critical race theory is. It'll stop you not knowing what vaccines are good and what vaccines are bad. It'll stop you getting conned by religious people. You know, that's a one size fits all answer to everything we've talked about tonight. Just think better. Just think a little bit better.
Right. And I just want to say that doing your research is not sitting on the couch watching tons and tons of YouTube videos all day long, except the nonprofits. You can watch us
True.
and you'll be fine. And speaking of the nonprofits, I would also invite everyone to join our fan social media outlets. And you can find most of the nonprofit hosts on the Atheist Community of Discord by going to tiny.cc/ACD Discord and on Facebook at tiny.cc/FBNP or Meta. I don't know if that Meta thing has happened yet. Anyway, if you like to support the show, you can do so by becoming a patron at tiny.cc/PatreonNP. If you find yourself already shopping at Amazon, support the Atheist Community of Austin by shopping at smile.amazon.com and selecting the Atheist Community of Austin as a beneficiary. Be sure to use that link to help out the ACA, and we appreciate it. And guys, look, we also value your feedback. So please tell us what you like and what you don't like in the comments section below. They're there and we read them because I was reading them before we did this recording. And also please email us at nonprofits@atheist-community.org. All right. So before we wrap up this whole dog and pony show, I think I say that at like every show that I conduct, but that's okay. Let's just get like some real quick final thoughts. I'll start with you, Arden, since you're a part of my my sandwich, or a Richard sandwich, shall I say?
Yeah, I just, I think Richard nailed it on the head with just try to be more critical about the things you're thinking about, and nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes. We all have flaws in our thinking, but just try to think a little bit deeper than the first thing that somebody tells you.
Right.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah, and other than being the meat in the sandwich, which has been an absolute pleasure, by the way, I think the most important thing is to, as apart from thinking properly, is to know that you don't have to speak for somebody, but you don't have to even speak on behalf of somebody, but you can support groups of people and not feel bad about it. It's not something to be ashamed of. Don't let anyone shame you into not having a voice on behalf of someone else. It's fine.
It is fine to support other people and support other groups of people who don't belong into your groups. We need it, and that's how we build communities, no matter what we look like or who we are. Okay. All right. Well, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure doing this with you. We three nonprofits of Orientar, bearing the news, we traverse so far. Fear and Fountain, War and Mountain, there's going to be a war on Christmas soon. And on that note, thank you guys for tuning in, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Watch The Atheist Experience live Sundays at 4:30 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTAXP and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callaxp.